So time then for an update on the day's business news, and Elisabeth Borne will take the helm of the French government today. She faces a mountain of challenges to bring about reforms at a time of rising inflation and slowing growth. And Yuka from the business desk joins me. She's got more for us, Yuka.
Well, Stuart, obviously the incoming Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, faces both immediate and long-term challenges. The most pressing issue, of course, is boosting people's purchasing power. Elisabeth Borne has the kind of experience that would help her weather the storm. With an engineering background and a long experience in public sector jobs, she has already brought about difficult reforms in the state railway company, as well as France's unemployment benefits scheme. But some say she's a technocrat who lacks the understanding of what people really need. Erin Ogunkiye has more.
Rising inflation, retirement reform, and the transition to the green economy, to name just a few. France's new Prime Minister, Elisabeth Borne, inherits numerous economy-related challenges as she steps into Matignon Palace as the French Prime Minister. Among her first priorities, increasing purchasing power. In April, inflation hit just over 5% in France, according to Eurostat. The government has already put a couple of remedies into motion, including an 18-cent per litre fuel discount until the end of July, and a proposal to offer food vouchers to the most modest households in the coming months. Among the more challenging reforms Elisabeth Borne faces, overseeing Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plan, which would see the minimum retirement age raised from 62 to 65 by 2031. A project she already worked on as Labour Minister.
Retirement reform is necessary to make our system more universal, equitable and sustainable. For this reason, we must work a bit longer in the years ahead.
As far as trade goes, the pandemic and then the war in Ukraine revealed just how dependent France is on global supply chains, making reindustrialization a major priority for the new Prime Minister. And finally, Elisabeth Borne will be tasked with orchestrating France's ecological transition, one of Emmanuel Macron's key campaign promises. That includes not only overseeing the transition to cleaner energy sources, but also integrating ecology into the country's post-coronavirus economic recovery plan.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. European markets started trading on a mildly positive note. Paris up, as you can see, 0.6% after the announcement of a new Prime Minister. Asian shares made modest gains, rebounding from the previous day's decline. As you can see, they're all up. Hang Seng rallying, standing out, really rallying 3%. Sri Lanka's new Prime Minister says the country is down to its last day of petrol as the country's energy minister urged citizens not to join lengthy queues at petrol stations and stop protesting. Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was appointed Prime Minister last Thursday, says the country urgently needs $75 million in foreign exchange to pay for essential imports. He said the country's financial health was so bad that the government has had no choice but to print money, despite the risk of hyperinflation.
Against my own wishes, I'm compelled to permit printing money in order to pay state sector employees and to pay for essential goods and services. However, we must remember that printing money leads to the depreciation of the rupee.
Moving on, Elon Musk has suggested that he could negotiate a lower price for Twitter, claiming that there could be at least 4 times more fake accounts on the social media platform than what the company says. Last week, the billionaire put the $44 billion deal to buy Twitter on hold over questions about the company's calculation that fake accounts and bots account for just 5% of its users. Twitter shares dropped further on Monday and is now worth around $37, much lower than Musk's offer to pay $54 per share. And finally from me, Russians are to bid farewell to McDonald's. The hamburger chain has decided to pull out of the country for good. The US fast food giant says it made the decision because of the humanitarian crisis and unpredictable operating environment caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The company suspended business there in March in the wake of the war. It's selling its 850 restaurants in the country and says it seeks to include future employment of its 62,000 local staff as part of a sales deal. McDonald's has been in Russia for 3 decades. Its foray there was seen as another symbol of the end of the Cold War. Customers show mixed feelings.
It'll be bad without McDonald's. I celebrated all of my birthdays here during the 1990s. It's the whole history.
The Big Mac's so good, but I'm not going to sell my soul for it. I'd like to memorize what it feels like.
Well, I've certainly never celebrated my birthdays in a McDonald's restaurant, but sad news for some.
May have done when I was a lot younger, occasionally. Jukka, thanks for Business News.